Welcome to Ponchatoula Live, the show where we make it easy for you to connect with the people of Ponchatoula. I'm your host, Parker Layrisson, and today I've got a fantastic guest. I've been looking forward to this interview for weeks because the man that we're going to get to know today is someone that I've long admired and looked up to for many, many decades. He has made an impact on this community in so many ways. First and foremost, the way I met him as an educator, a longtime educator at Ponchatoula High School, where he touched so many lives and helped people do better than they ever could have without them. This also as a journalist. This is a man who has shared very important news with a community that really needed it and approached that journalistic career in a very unique way. I'm talking, of course, about local legend Eddie Pons. Mr. Pons, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you coming on because I know your time is very valuable. Why don't we kick things off with you telling our viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I was born and raised here in Ponchatoula, down there in the Millville area. You call that area down there where the sawmill was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I was born and raised and educated here in Ponchatoula. Went to Ponchatoula College School. Later it became Pure and Junior High, and from there we had to leave and go to Hammond to Greenville Park High in order to finish high school. And from there, went in the Army, went to Southern University in Baton Rouge, and then later on got a master's degree from Southeastern Louisiana University. And this past couple of semesters, I received a certificate in videography.
Wow.
Where I'm recording oral history.
That's neat. Well, hopefully you can teach us a little bit about that because I tell my friends we have a very low-tech operation around here. I went on a podcast recently with my friend Jeff Leshershire in Hammond, and they had all these lights going everywhere and multiple cameras, and it was fancy. And I was like, man, we're just filming on iPhones and computer cameras. So maybe you can share some of that new education with us, Mr. Pons. What I love hearing about your story is it's one of constant improvement. Okay, you're old enough, and I'm not here to ask your age. My dad's still a young man, and he's older than you, so we're not trying to cast any aspersions on you. But my point is, old enough to have been educated in Ponchatoula during segregation, okay, which I think is a first for us to hear about on this program. Yet here you are in 2026, still learning, still getting educated about the most, this used to be Jetson technology. People like you and me to talk, through videos, and I really admire that about you. Master's degree in between. When did that love of education or that, importance of education take root in you? Was that something your parents instilled in you, or did you get it elsewhere?
Well, it was strange. Now, my parents didn't have no more than a third grade education.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't have the time to attend school. But they instilled education in all of us. And it was 9 of us, and they instilled the importance of education. And
so can I interrupt you real quick? Where were you in the batting order? I don't know if you can notice over here. I've got baseball stuff in my office. The 9 people in a batting order. Did you bat leadoff as the oldest child, or ninth, or where were you?
No, I was the 4th child.
Oh, you batted cleanup. That's like Babe Ruth territory, Lou Gehrig territory, rather.
Oh, yeah.
That's where the Hall of Fame hitters hit.
4th of 9. Yeah.
Well, so you're 4th of 9, and as you mentioned, your parents have to be so busy. I mean, first of all, it's an era of segregation, a very limited opportunity for African Americans. They've got to put food on the table for 9 kids. They don't have a ton of education themselves, but they're instilling this in you. When did the choice to go into the Army happen, and how did that come about?
That came about after I graduated from high school.
Okay.
Didn't have any money to go to college. Couldn't find a job that was paying no more than $30 a week. Well, I imagine that was good at that time. Anyway, I was in the Army. I wound up in the Army for a couple of years. Well, that was got to be scary because my time was up. It's time for me to come home. My 24 months was up and came out with orders. We going to Vietnam, and so we came out the field from training and went straight to Hickam Air Force Base with all the equipment and was ready to move out. And that's where we stayed. Well, that's where I stayed until the situation died down. When it died down, they began to let us come home. And that's where they supplied me with a Jeep so I can clear posts and come home.
Okay.
And then from that, after I came home, a few months later, I got married. I had 2 kids, 2 daughters, 2 lovely daughters, and I was working in New Orleans then doing out of the labor union, which I was making at least about 3-4 times more than I was making here in Ponchatoula. And after, I guess my oldest kid was in school. And I came home one day, I was tired. I told my wife, I said, this is not for me. She looked at me, she said, what you gonna do? I said, I want to go back to school. She said, when the semester started, I said, the semester started yesterday. She said, if you'd have said something before the semester started, you could have been in school this semester. I said, no, I got to work and save some money so I can leave some money back here for you and the kid. She said, don't worry about me. We're going to be just fine.
Wow.
And by then, I was on the GI Bill. So
I was going to ask whether that was a GI Bill opportunity. That's great.
Yeah, that was the GI Bill opportunity. All I had to do was make my semester money. And I made that during the first week of summer. When I got out of summer and started working, I made enough to take me through for 2 semesters.
This is a neat theme of our show in recent weeks, in that we've been able to hear from several hometown hero journalists, Mr. Vic Couvilion, now yourself, all gentlemen who got this education through GI Bill opportunities and post, military service. And y'all were really, serving this country during very frightening times, the war in Vietnam, the Cold War. What was that like on your psyche to just kind of not know, whether you'd have to stay or go and where they'd send you? And what was that like to be a soldier during that time, Mr. Pons?
Well, during that time, after advanced basic training, they told us 2 orders was coming down. One was for Korea and one was for Hawaii for advanced jungle training. And so when the first orders came down, they told us to go check the board and see if your name on it and start packing. I went down there. I must have read that board about 5 or 6 times, make sure my name wasn't on it. And after my name wasn't on, I said, oh, well, the next one coming up, I know where I'm going. So I wound up in Hawaii for advanced jungle training.
Oh, wow. And that's got to be like a fast track to Vietnam, right? I mean, I would imagine.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So, to the chubby modern American like me, Hawaii sounds like a good time. But in that timeline, that had to be a tough draw, very frightening. Circling back to when you got back and you went to your wife and talked about needing to get this education and starting the GI Bill. When you went over to Southern, did you go there with a major and a career in mind? Or did you start more generally? How did that process work?
I didn't have anything in mind. I took the basic courses that was required for a freshman. But my sophomore year, I had to make a choice. But I love science. And so I started taking science courses. And
that, of course, is going to lead us to you being a legendary science teacher at PHS eventually, right?
Right. That led me into physical science. And so that's when I came out of college with a physical science and a minor in physical education.
So were you able to get a job with the school system right out of college, or did it take a while? What was that journey like?
Well, no. When I first came out, I applied around here and I didn't get anything. And I went to work in New Orleans. I worked there for a year at L.B. Landry Junior Senior High. Then I came back for the school was out for the next year. I applied again. And they told me to go talk to Mr. Barker. And this was around about 71. And I went and talked to him. He said, yeah, we knew you was in college and we knew when you was going to get out. We've been waiting on you. He said, but we had a delay, had some kind of disturbance. And one of the parents whose kid was involved in that disturbance, we just happened to arrive on campus at the same time, went into his office at the same time, and he thought I was with her.
Oh, wow, no. Bad luck.
Yeah, and so after he called us both in there to talk to us about it, I was lost. But I knew about it because they told me about it. So after he finished talking with us, we went outside in his office. And I told the secretary, I said, I need to talk to him about something else. I didn't come in here for this because I don't know anything about it. So she told him, he called me back in. He said, you didn't have anything to do with that incident? I said, no, I don't know anything about that incident. He said, okay. And then when I told him what I was there for, he said, oh, yeah. And so he interviewed me. He didn't interview me, he just talked to me. And he was a nice guy. And I heard there was so much wrong about him. What they said just wasn't true to me. And so he said, okay, then you're going to hear from the school board. And then that day when I got off from work, because I was working at Modern Maid then, that's where I had worked all the summer. So after graduation, they kept me on. And I came home and then my wife was laughing. I said, what you laughing at me? She said, policemen here said they're checking you out. Said they had to check you out. See if you got a record or anything that can prevent you from teaching school. He said, but the policemen that check you out said you didn't have anything to worry, so you got the job.
So they were doing their background check on you. That's wild.
That background check.
So did you go straight into teaching physical science? Because that's what you were teaching when I arrived at PHS.
Yeah, that's what I taught the whole while I was there.
Okay.
And I taught about 3 courses of PE for about 2 or 3 years. They was having a problem getting coaches.
Yeah.
And then I had to, well, I didn't have to go, but well, I guess if I wanted my job, I had to go because it's on my certificate. And the judge said they had to have a black coach or someone in black in the PE department. So that's where I wind up at. But it was all good, it was all fun. And Mr. Barker, we got along extremely well. Because when I was working on my master's, the instructor gave us an assignment and he said, now the only way you're gonna get information on this, you got to come from a principal. And that's the only way you're gonna find it. So I went to school.
Expand on the assignment if you wouldn't mind. What was the assignment? What was the topic of it?
What was that?
What was the topic of this assignment that you needed the principal's info on?
Well, it's some information about administration.
Okay, gotcha.
They had some instructors in there. Now, someone had written some articles on about administration. And I went to Mr. Barker and I told him what I needed. But my assignment was, he said, okay, come back tomorrow. He went through his brochures and he had the secretary to go through them. And when I went back that afternoon, he had tagged all those articles and all those brochures. And really made my grade easy that semester with all those articles right
That's
there.
Great. That's great.
Yeah, and so after I graduated, I went back in there and I said, Mr. Parker, I said, I graduated this summer. And I said, I would like to thank you for helping me along with those articles that I needed.
Uh-huh.
He said that wasn't nothing. And so I went on, had 30 successful, 29 successful years there.
Oh, wow.
We won it, yes, and we got
Yeah.
along good. And the strange thing about it, my first year, it had some kids, both black and white. They was tough. They was
Uh-huh.
boys. They
Right.
was tough. Mr. Barker said you got to hang in there with them. I hung in there with them guys. Eventually, as the year progressed along, they began to drop out. They got in trouble in the community and everywhere. Then after that, it was smooth sailing for me, man. Smooth sailing. Couldn't ask no better place to teach. Matter of fact, I didn't
Yeah.
want to teach anywhere else.
Well, I passed your old classroom just a few weeks ago. A friend of mine was teaching a course, and they wanted an attorney to come and talk about a career in the law. So I went there, and I had to walk through the science wing to get there. And I was passing, and I'm thinking, all right, that was Halsey over there, that was Pons over there, all down here to Hastings, and it's funny because I've been out of school, 30 plus years. But in my mind, that's still Mr. Pond's classroom, and I don't know how many teachers have come and gone there since, but it will forever be imprinted in my head as yours. And I got a kick out of it. They were telling me that they don't use the lockers anymore. I mean, there's so many lockers in that school, but nowadays everybody's got an iPad or some kind of screen,
Oh,
book, so they don't. If a friend of mine said that she was talking about backpacks with kids the other day, said go grab your book sack. I said, what's that? Because they just weren't used to putting books in there. It's a, Chromebook or an iPad or whatever. So times have changed, but your classroom is still there, and the lockers are around it are still there. There's just nobody using them. And then I want to thank you for kind of giving us a window into Mr. Bodker. He was always a man I greatly admired. Our families go way back, and I just think like you said earlier, of course, there's always going to be a lot of chatter negative about there's certain jobs, like my dad's job is sheriff. You can't if you're doing it right, you can't keep everybody happy. So whether you're the sheriff or the police chief or the principal or the science teacher, you got to give report cards out and discipline
yeah.
people. You're going to have people mad each way. But he was somebody I greatly admired. So I thank you for sharing that with him. What were some other people that worked with you during your PHS years that really come to mind and that you remember fondly, whether they were fellow teachers you greatly respected or friends or people that worked there? When you think back on your PHS years, who comes to mind?
My first year working there, well, you don't get to know how to do everything. At the end of the year, we had a certain way that we had to do the cum cards, the report cards, and before we put the grades, the final grade on the cum cards and the report card, and we had to go through that process. I'm sitting in there, I didn't know what was going on in there, and Miss Leicestershire, my mother used to work for her, Sis Leicestershire, and
Good family.
yeah, and she said, "Come here, Eddie, let me show you something. Give me those cards." She gave me those cards. She said, "Number them, put them in alphabetical order, then number them 1, 2, 3, 4." And that way, when you get ready to get them back, when they're out of order, you don't have a, you can get them back in there. Huh? And she showed me how to do that paperwork. That was the first 9 weeks of grades. And after that, I was moving, man. So I had been knowing Miss Leicestershire before I started teaching because my mother was working for her. And we had such a good relationship while we were down on campus. We didn't have any
Yeah.
problems at all. Yeah.
That's just a good, hardworking family. I mean, they're Leicestershires, some teaching schools, some driving buses, some picking strawberries, some practicing law, some working in the plants, some working in the hospitals. I've known Leicestershires to do all that and much more. and I hadn't found a bad one yet. I mean, I'm sure every family's got a rotten apple somewhere, but they do well hiding them, and that's really neat. I want to share a comment that's coming in here for you, Mr. Pons. And although we see the picture of the beautiful Lark Thibodeau there, it's her Facebook account. I think it's her husband Vince that's actually doing this posting. So he says that Mr. Pons was his freshman general science teacher in 1973 and 74. And after 8 years of that strict classroom atmosphere at St. Joseph Catholic School, Mr. Eddie Pons made class enjoyable and challenging at the same time. He said that you were laid back, but that you held your own with their wild bunch. So, how does that make you feel to hear all these years later one of your former students speak so fondly of you?
It makes me feel good. It makes me feel good even when I'm in the grocery store or pass them on the streets, and they stop and talk to me. They remember me. I might not remember their name, but I remember their face. And we get to talking, and then some of them, they tell me what they are doing. And it really just made me feel good. And I was in the mall one day, and this young man walked up to me. He said, "Mr. Pond, you remember me?" I said, "How can I forget you?" He was tough. Oh, he was rough. And he said, "You know what I'm doing now?" I said, "No, I don't." He told me he was some kind of technician in one of those plants down there. He'd have fooled me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he said, "You're surprised?" And I said, "Yes, I am. I'm glad, though." Yeah, but he turned out to be a real nice young man.
That's got to be so rewarding. I teach on a very limited basis at the law school level, and you don't have a lot of people there that you're worried about. Are they going to make it? Well, everybody's got their problems and shortcomings and whatnot. But I would imagine when you're teaching somebody ninth grade science, there's a big difference between left and right. Right might end up where you did, master's degrees and newspapers and success and all that. Left might be jail or early death or whatever. And it must be so rewarding for you to see people decades later and have them remember you and share with you, like Vince did, that you were an influence in their life. What before we move out of your education career and into other things, if you were to talk to somebody who was a young aspiring teacher, someone like you back in your Southern University days as a student, but maybe they're unsure where they want to go, whether they want to teach, what they want to teach. What are some factors they should be thinking about? What advice would you give to kind of the modern day Eddie Pons who's thinking about doing what you did?
Yeah, I don't know the students today, just freshmen in college, make sure you know what you want to major in before you really get off into your
That's great advice.
that at least by your sophomore year, because therefore you can start taking those courses or doing those things early. Even if you might have a hobby or something that you want to improve on or get some more education about. You can do that while you're in there too. Maybe some of them courses that you have to pick there, or you can maybe substitute one of those for that. Because I did that when I was in there during the summer when I was in school.
And what was your hobby? What did you study that was on the hobby end of things?
Photography.
Oh,
Photography
cool.
and writing.
Well, that seems like a perfect segue to ask you how you got into the newspaper publishing business. If you would, tell us about the Drum newspaper and its origin story and where you fit into it.
Okay. I had been teaching about, I guess about 10, 12 years. My wife and I, we went to a program at Southeastern. Julian Bond was the guest speaker. And when I was in, we was in this auditorium there. Bond was up there speaking. I looked around. I told my wife, I said, the press is not here. I said, no press is here. nobody's taking pictures. I said, oh, that's not good. She said, well, what you going to do about it? I said, well, I'm going to see if I can start a paper. So after, by that time had completed the creative writing course that I was taking, and I went to Ponchatoula Times. He hired me as a photographer and sports writer. So I got there. I didn't know too much about it. He had to nurture me, man.
So this
Anyway,
is Brian McMahon. Ironically, Brian McMahon was the very first guest on this show. I used to write for him part-time with a little legal column, and his son is a good friend of mine. So neat. Thank you for bringing him up. He's not been with us for a few years. He passed away.
yeah.
Neat to hear the connection that y'all work together. Please tell us more.
And I stayed with Brian doing sports photography, and I think I stayed with him 3 years, and and that's where I began to learn the newspaper business.
Uh-huh.
Now, and I used to go with him, get up about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, go with him to the printer, have the paper printed, and we loaded up, and we came on back home, and he got it together for distribution. And then when I left Brian, I went to the Enterprise, and I stayed there with Don Elsa for quite a while. And that's where I started to land the paper out and all of that down there. And then I had a bad experience once. Don had to go out of town, and I needed 2 headlines and 2 paragraphs typed up. And the person that was doing it for me, I don't want to call no name, but anyway, it didn't work out. Oh, they did it, the 2 headlines and that, and I laid the paper out. And when she finished the headline, I was hungry. I wanted some grits and toast and coffee. So I went to Paul's Cafe and got me some grits, toast, and coffee. I ate that, I came back, and I laid out the paper. And then I went home, I told my wife, I said, we're going to spend the night in Baton Rouge with the kids. She said, what's the matter? I said, I've got to go get me a computer and a laser printer.
Uh-huh.
I went over there, got up to Sunday morning. My son-in-law and I, went around to the electronic stores, seeing what best price we can find. Anyway, I found a laser printer, and I got me a computer. And I came back home, hooked it up. Oh, that made my work easy then, real easy, because I was working at my own pace, and then I can work when I wanted to work.
So you weren't relying on this person who had been insubordinate or obstructionist. Is that what I'm taking away here, or am I missing something?
Oh no, I was just talking about me getting a computer. I'm going to Baton Rouge, getting a computer, and came back, and I was when I hooked, set the computer printer up, it made my layout work with the newspaper real easy, because I can work at my own pace.
Yeah, at your own pace, right in your own place.
Yeah.
So the information I have is that you started the Drum newspaper in 1985. Is that right?
86.
86. Okay, forgive me, missed by a year. So wow, we're at the 40-year mark, and you talk about working for the Ponchatoula Times, the Enterprise, 2 fantastic papers of the old days of Ponchatoula. It's sadly not with us. The Enterprise is totally gone.
Yeah.
The Ponchatoula Times has become the Tangi Times and is now bigger, covers more. So tell us more about that. You got the computer, you now can lay it out yourself. When do you get that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, if you will, to go on your own and to start your own paper? How did that come about?
Well, I was already doing photography, and that's what I always wanted to do. But after I went out to Southeastern and there was no press covering. I said it should have been at least the black press if they had one, which should have been covering it. And that's how I got started. And I wanted to record, had a lot of things happening at that time that was history. A lot of history was being taken place, and nobody was there to record it.
Yeah, so I think you mentioned Mr. Julian Bond was in town, a famous
Yeah,
civil rights leader. I think he started the Southern Poverty
yeah,
Legal Clinic. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But a major national figure. If he was in Washington, D.C., the Post would cover him. If he were in New York, the Times would cover him. But here in Ponchatoula or the surrounding area, they're not getting that coverage. So you're able to come in and fill a void and bring that important news to people that would otherwise not get it. Is that right?
yeah, that's right. And I did get a chance to interview some of the civil rights leaders that was prominent in that movement in Tangipahoa Parish before all of them passed.
Yeah, please tell me about that if you don't mind.
I was able to interview MC Moore.
Oh yeah,
And
famous for the school board case.
yeah, and then I was able to interview the Harveys with the organized the Voters League,
Uh-huh.
and then the People's Voter League, and I.W. Dietrich, and
What about Dr. J.L. Garrett? Did you ever get to interview Dr. Garrett?
oh yeah, I got to interview him also. Can't forget him, man. He was the dean of the civil rights movement
He
in this
was.
area.
Yeah, I was really blessed and honored to get to do some work for him. He was a tremendous man. I looked up to him a bunch.
Yeah, he was a fantastic guy, and yeah, I got to do a story on him, and that's one reason why I was when the COVID come and we had to cease publication, but I did go online with it. But you can't do online what you can do with print media,
Right.
and so I'm in the process now doing some research and pulling all that stuff together for another project.
Now, Mr. Pons, I don't know if you can see this, but I've brought up what I think is your website here, drumbeatsla.com. Does that sound right?
That sounds right.
So, folks, we will try to put this in the comments, but I would recommend that you check this out. It's a treasure trove of outstanding information. As you can see here, it's got local news, legacy, all kinds of stuff. And as Mr. Pons mentioned, he's been at this for 40 years. The photography is still exceptional. He kind of mentioned earlier that was his first love, but this site's really impressive. I also want to share with you, Mr. Eddie, a comment that came in from one of my dear friends, Marshall Graves. I'm sure you know Marshall.
Oh, yeah. Yes, indeed.
He is, everybody knows and loves Marshall, and he's a really big deal, but he's no longer the most famous Graves. His children have long been more famous than him or me or whatever. But right now, his baby is what Dick Vitale might call a diaper dandy. He is the conference freshman of the year out in the West Coast Conference. He's on the first team all conference team, and he's the sixth man of the year. And he made the all tournament team. So it's a big week for the Graves family. They are taking on the Kentucky Wildcats tomorrow. I think the game's at 11:15. Marshall, you can comment and correct me there if I'm wrong. But anyway, I encourage anybody watching to check that out. But Marshall says that he loves Mr. Eddie Pons and his family. What a pleasant surprise it was to open Facebook and see this interview. He also goes on to say, Mr. Pons, that he wishes he would have been smart enough to take your class in high school. Marshall's got a sense of humor. He doesn't take himself too seriously. Graves, thanks for tuning in, man. And of course, we're all rooting Allen on tomorrow, man. We'll all be watching with you. How does it feel to see community leaders like Marshall who, are doing so much? Marshall's got an outreach ministry. He's got 3 kids that have played Division I basketball. He's now a very active grandparent to 3 grandkids. How does it make you feel to see a young leader who's perhaps kind of to some extent taken on the baton of leadership that you've held so long? But how does it feel to see somebody like Marshall say he loves you?
Yeah, when you see young leaders like Marshall, it makes you feel good. I'm proud of Marshall for being so young and doing the thing that he's done, what he's doing and what he have done.
Yes, sir.
And I would love to see more young people step up and step out like Marshall did.
That's
We
that's
need
a
more leaders like that.
That's a great comment, and he didn't take away. He didn't wait until he was 50 years old to get started at it. He started reaching out to young kids at a very young age himself,
Right.
and it's been heartbreaking work at times because some kids are going to turn left, as we alluded to earlier, instead of right, and get in trouble or get themselves killed or whatnot. And I've seen that take its toll on him. But he's back up there every Monday night, every Thursday night, sharing God's word with these kids, teaching them the game of basketball, the game of life, and much more. And while he's surrounded by some great key people, James Gibbs, Demar Thomas, and more, yeah, you're right. We need some more guys to step up. Speaking of guys that have stepped up, another one comes on here to comment. Lamar Marshall, another great community leader, the former city councilman of Hammond and big time leader at many corporations and places. He says he has so much respect for you, Mr. Pons. That's gotta really mean a lot to you, I would imagine, coming
Yeah.
from someone like Lamar.
Lamar Marshall was a great guy. He
Yes,
was
sir.
a knowledgeable guy, and I enjoyed his company when he was here. I was hated to see him leave, but the man had to do what a man got to do.
I feel the
Yeah,
same way. You hate
Lamar
to see the
Marshall was
great
a
ones
great.
leave, but everybody's got to take care of their family, and can't help but support them.
Yes,
So, what have we
indeed.
not covered that you'd like to talk about? We talked about education some. We talked about family, newspapers, leadership. What else is on your mind that we could cover? Because I promise I'd respect your time, and I'm running a little late. I don't want to go a lot late, but I do want to give you the opportunity to talk about anything that might be on your mind.
The thing that's on my mind now that I'm mostly concentrated on is local history. That's from Ponchatoula to Kentwood. And, uh, and if anyone have any, uh, well, I could only say it like this, and history is history. Any information about, things that happened, what black people was doing back in the days, as they say. And if you have any information, that please share it with me.
Yeah,
And
so let's talk about how can people reach out. I can see my producer Danny Lynn Dennis has shared a link to your website for your paper. Is there a way to contact you on that website, or should you give an additional
I
email
can,
address, phone
I,
number? How should
yeah,
people contact?
I can give you a phone number,
Yeah, please do that. And Danny Lynn hopefully will be listening in, and she can write it in the comments. What's your phone number, Mr. Pons?
985
Uh-huh.
351 0813.
Thank you for sharing that. So, to our listeners, to our viewers, if you've got any history, because as Mr. Pons noticed earlier, the Black community's history has been underreported around here. That's just a sad fact. And he didn't get around to start his newspaper until 1986. And so, Danny Lim, thank you. I can see now we have the number here for you, Mr. Pons. But
Okay.
folks, if you have history to share, please do it. We're so lucky to have people here in Ponchatoula like Eddie Pons, Mr. Jim, our former principal, your colleague, who's doing it, written the books about the town of Ponchatoula. But there's so much more that's out there that we don't have yet. And so, folks, if you've got that, please share it with Mr. Pons. Mr. Pons, I just want to say thank you. As I mentioned at the outset, I've always looked up to you. I remember when I went home, and I never had your class, so I didn't get to be your student. But I remember mentioning you to my parents. I was like, Dad, do you know Mr. Eddie Pons? He's got a newspaper. And he was like, yeah. I mean, he just had a profound respect for you and thought you were such a good leader of the community. And so that's just kind of imprinted on me 40 plus years ago. And thank you for all you've done for us and continue to do for us. And I really appreciate your time. I know it's valuable. You've got family and friends and a lot of other stuff you could be doing. So thanks for sticking with us to the end. And to our viewers, thank you all for listening and watching. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you here next week. Y'all take care.
Thank you.